The station smelled of burnt circuits, recycled air, and the faint, bitter taste of fear. Lyra shivered as she pressed herself against the cold metal wall of the overcrowded corridor. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that it had been nearly 2 days since her last proper meal. The black market below was chaos, merchants shouting over the din, alien traders bartering with strange, sharp-edged devices, and desperate humans trying to survive the harsh life of the outer rims. Lyra's boots scuffed against the grated floor as she moved cautiously through the throngs. Every eye seemed to watch her, sizing her up, judging her. She tightened her grip on the small pack she carried. A few scraps of credits, a worn photograph of her family, and the tattered shirt that barely protected her from the station's chill. Her heart pounded. Hunger gnawed at her, making her dizzy and weak. The thought came again, the one she had tried to push away. Sell herself, just for a meal, just to survive one more day. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't shake the desperation. At the far end of the corridor, a merchant stall was crowded with figures that moved with a dangerous precision. Humans, aliens, and robots alike jostled for attention. Lyra's pulse quickened as she approached. She forced herself to keep walking, even as the bile of fear rose in her throat. The merchant, a tall, scaly alien with sharp claws and eyes that reflected hunger like a mirror, noticed her immediately. "Looking for a place to stay, little human?" It hissed. Its voice was oily, smooth, but cruel. "Or other arrangements?" Lyra swallowed hard. Her hands shook as she clutched the pack closer. I need food," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She hated herself for asking, for what she was about to consider. The alien leaned closer, its long fingers brushing her arm. "Food comes at a price, my dear. You know that." Fear spiraled in her chest, twisting into despair. She nodded slightly. I can pay. Whatever you want." Her words hung in the air like smoke. Lyra hated herself. But she was so hungry, so tired, so alone. Then she felt it, a presence. A human presence, calm and steady, cutting through the chaos. She turned her head slightly and saw him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and unarmed. His eyes were a warm shade of amber, not the cold, calculating stare of a merchant or a predator. He wore a simple jacket over a worn shirt, his hands busy adjusting the straps of a small pack on his back. But what caught her attention wasn't his strength or his appearance, it was his calm. A sense of safety radiated from him, something rare in this place. He stepped forward, blocking her path gently but firmly. "She looks like she's lost," he said, his voice smooth, kind, without accusation. He glanced at the alien merchant. "Not today," the alien hissed, baring its teeth. "Who are you to—" "I said not today," the man repeated, more firmly. He reached into a pouch at his belt and produced a small stack of credits. He handed it to the merchant. "Buy her something to eat. That's all." The alien stared at the man, then at the credits, and finally backed off with a hiss. Lyra blinked, confused, her heart hammering in disbelief. The man extended a hand toward her. "Come with me. It's not safe here." Lyra hesitated. She had been taught never to trust anyone in this place. But something in his eyes, something human, something honest, made her step forward. He led her through a tangle of corridors and staircases, away from the noise and chaos to a small, cramped living quarter tucked into a quiet corner of the station. Inside, the room was dimly lit by a soft amber glow from a single lamp. The air smelled of metal, oil, and something faintly sweet. Baking bread, maybe, though she couldn't be sure. "Sit," the man said gently. He gestured to a worn chair near a small table. "Eat first. We'll talk after." Lyra sank into the chair, her legs trembling. On the table, he had placed a plate of warm food. Steaming, fragrant, simple but nourishing. Her stomach twisted in gratitude and disbelief. She hadn't tasted something like this in days. "Thank you," she whispered, almost afraid her voice would break. She took a bite and warmth spread through her body. She closed her eyes, savoring it, tears threatening to spill. The man watched her quietly, patient. "I'm Evan," he said after a moment. "You are?" "Lyra," she replied softly. She looked at him, still cautious. Why are you helping me?" "You don't even know me." Evan shrugged lightly. "I do know one thing. People deserve a chance. Even in a place like this," she frowned. "A chance at for what? To die hungry and alone like everyone else?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe, or maybe to live. To survive. To find something better than this." Lyra shook her head. I don't know how to survive anymore. Not alone. You're not alone now, he said, his voice steady, reassuring. We'll figure it out together. Her eyes studied him. There was no trickery, no harshness, no hidden deal, just human kindness. Something rare, fragile, yet undeniable. Her stomach clenched with a mixture of relief and suspicion. Why me? She asked finally, her voice small. Why bother? Evan leaned back, studying the wall above the table. Because I remember what it's like to be desperate. To feel like no one cares. And I decided a long time ago, if I can make a small difference, I will. She wanted to speak, to ask more, but words failed her. The hunger in her belly was fading, replaced by a strange warmth she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Minutes passed. Lyra ate slowly, savoring each bite. Evan watched silently, ensuring she was safe but not hovering. The simplicity of it, the calm, quiet attention, was overwhelming. Finally, Lyra looked up at him. I don't know how to thank you, she said softly. You don't need to, he replied. Just live. That's thanks enough. Outside, the station roared on, chaotic and merciless. But inside this small room, it was quiet. Safe. Human. Lyra realized something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. Maybe survival didn't have to be about compromise or despair. Maybe it could be about trust and kindness and finding the courage to keep going. Hours later, as the station lights dimmed for the rotation cycle, Lyra curled up on the thin cot Evan had offered. Her stomach was full, her body rested, and for the first time in a long while, her mind felt light. She listened to the soft hum of the station, the occasional distant footstep, and allowed herself to breathe. Evan sat in a chair across the room, quietly cleaning his tools, occasionally glancing at her. He didn't need to say anything. His presence alone was reassurance, a simple truth in a chaotic world. Humans could care. Humans could protect. Humans could make a difference. And in that moment, Lyra understood that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change. The next day would bring challenges, dangerous corridors, shady merchants, and desperate choices, but for now she was safe. And that safety, that simple gift of food and trust, was enough to plant a seed of hope. And from hope anything could grow. The morning light from the station's artificial windows was pale and cold, but it brought a small sense of normalcy to Lyra. She sat on the thin cot in Evan's room, trying to steady her breathing. The meal from last night had filled her stomach, but it had also filled her mind with questions. Questions about trust, kindness, and the strange human who had saved her from desperation. Evan was already moving about the room, tidying tools and checking the few gadgets he had. His movements were precise but relaxed, and he seemed to find comfort in simple tasks. Lyra watched him, curiosity mingling with caution. Why is he helping me? She wondered. Why would a stranger care about someone like me? Finally, she spoke, her voice soft and uncertain. Evan, I need to ask, why do you help people? Why me? Evan paused, glancing at her with calm amber eyes. I've seen what this world can do to people, he said. I've seen people starve, people suffer, people lose hope. And I decided, if I can make a small difference, I will. I'll help someone survive, even if it's just for one day. That's enough for me. Lyra blinked, absorbing his words. It was so simple, yet so rare. Most people on the station only thought about themselves, trading lives, selling favors, or ignoring the suffering around them. But here was a man who did something human, something real, without expecting payment. She swallowed and shifted in her seat. I don't know how to do that. How to help or trust anyone. I've been alone for so long. Her voice faltered. I've done things I'm not proud of just to survive. Evan walked over and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Survival doesn't make you bad, he said quietly. It makes you human, and you're stronger than you think. You survived when most would have given up. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. I don't know if I can do that. Trust you. Trust anyone, she whispered. You don't have to trust me all at once, Evan said with a soft smile. Just take small steps. Eat, rest, breathe. One thing at a time. For the first time since the chaos of the black market, Lyra felt safe. She nodded slightly and allowed herself to relax. The room was quiet, and the hum of the station outside faded into the background. Evan turned to a small table cluttered with scraps of electronics and a tiny stove. "Breakfast?" he offered. From his supplies, he pulled out small nutrient packs, water, and some synthesized bread. It was simple, but enough to fill her stomach again. Lyra watched in amazement as he worked. He didn't just give her food, he made it from scratch, improvising with limited resources. A small flame flickered on the stove, warming the room and the air around them. She felt a growing admiration for the man, his skill, his patience, and his ingenuity. Humans, she thought, even in the worst places, we find ways to survive, to care, to create. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the only sounds the soft hum of the stove and the occasional clink of utensils. Finally, Evan spoke again. "You must have questions about me," he said. Lyra hesitated but nodded. "Yes, who are you? Why are you here? Why do you care?" Evan sat across from her, his hands folded on the table. "I was an engineer," he began. "I worked on colony ships helping settlements get off dangerous planets. But then, things went wrong. Corporate greed, alien raids, systems failing. I lost people I cared about. And I realized, there are too many people like us struggling and alone. I can't save everyone, but I can help those I meet. That's my choice." Lyra listened, intrigued. She could see the weight in his eyes, the memories of loss, and yet he carried on, helping others without bitterness, without expecting reward. She couldn't understand fully, but she felt something stirring inside her. This is different. This is real." Hours passed. They shared stories of hardship, of loss, of survival. Lyra told him about her family, the mining accident, the long days without food or warmth. Evan listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. He shared tales of his own struggles, the stations he had repaired, the colonies he had visited, and the people he had helped. Each story painted a picture of human ingenuity, courage, and compassion, qualities that no alien tech or trade could replicate. By the afternoon, Lyra felt lighter. Her body was rested, her mind clearer, and her heart, well, it was something she couldn't name yet. She didn't just feel safe. She felt connected, but the station outside remained dangerous. Evan's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "We can't stay here forever," he said. "The market isn't safe, and there are people who would take advantage of you if they knew you were with me." Lyra nodded. Fear prickled her skin, but she also felt a spark of courage. What do we do?" "We leave," Evan said simply. "I have a small ship. It's fast and we can move through the sectors unnoticed, but it won't be easy. We'll have to rely on each other." Her stomach clenched. The thought of leaving the relative safety of the room terrified her, but it also excited her. The idea of moving beyond survival, toward freedom, toward hope, was irresistible. As they prepared for departure, Evan handed her a small pack. "You'll need supplies. Food, water, basic tools. We'll improvise the rest." Lyra accepted it, her hands trembling. "I don't even know how to pilot a ship," she admitted. "You'll learn," Evan said, his smile reassuring. "Humans adapt. We survive. That's what makes us strong." Lyra felt a surge of admiration. "Humans, we are strange and wonderful. Even when everything is against us, we find a way." The station corridors were crowded and noisy, but Evan moved with practiced ease, guiding Lyra through hidden pathways, avoiding merchants and skirting patrols. Each step she took beside him was a small act of trust, a silent promise that she would try. Finally, they reached a small docking bay where Evan's ship waited. It was compact, utilitarian, but clearly designed for speed and maneuverability. Lyra stared at it, awed. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Evan chuckled softly. "It's not about beauty. It's about survival. But yes, I suppose it is beautiful in its own way." They climbed inside, the familiar hum of the engines filling the cabin. Evan handed her a headset and a small control panel. "You'll monitor navigation systems. Don't worry, I'll handle piloting. But pay attention. You'll learn fast." As the ship lifted off the station, Lyra pressed her hands to the panel, feeling the vibrations and the energy of the engines. Fear and excitement churned in her stomach. She was leaving the place that had been her cage, stepping into a new life. Hours passed as they navigated asteroid fields and avoided patrol drones. Lyra struggled at first, pressing the wrong buttons and misreading the navigation readouts. But Evan's patience never faltered. "Try again," he said gently. "You'll get it." Humans learn quickly. With each correction, each small success, Lyra felt her confidence grow. She realized that survival wasn't just about being strong or cunning. It was about learning, adapting, and trusting others when necessary. By the end of the day, they had cleared the outer rings of the station and were moving into open space. Lyra leaned back in her seat, exhausted but exhilarated. She looked at Evan, who was focused on the controls, and felt a strange warmth. You really are human, aren't you?" she said softly. Evan glanced at her, surprised, and then smiled. "I hope so. But more importantly, you are too. That's what matters. Humans stick together even in the hardest times. That's how we survive." Lyra nodded, the words sinking in. Humans survive. Humans care. Humans fight not just for themselves but for each other. And for the first time in a long while, she believed it. As the stars stretched into streaks of light around them, Lyra realized that this journey was more than escape. It was a lesson in humanity. It was hope. And perhaps in the days to come it would also be the start of something else. A bond forged not from desperation, but from trust, courage, and the simple act of kindness that had saved her life. For now, though she allowed herself to rest, tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, and new lessons. But tonight she was safe, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt the small, fragile spark of hope in her chest. And that spark, she knew, could grow into something powerful.